Hey guys, just wanted to do my review of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 4, Episode 14, The Man Behind the Shield. So, the episode starts with Daisy and Coulson fighting in what looks to be like the compound, their training room, but it's actually a simulation created by um, Fitz, which is like the original, was kind of like the bait. I guess like the beta, like prototype version of what's now the framework created by Radcliffe, and the team is deduces that that's where that May is trapped inside the framework, and that they just try and use the source code to try to locate where she is, as well as Mace, and he has him having a fight with Mac because he blames him for creating the for like or at least like creating like the technology for the Ada and the framework, and just thinks that he's as much to blame as Radcliffe, and which Fist is pissed off that Mac would go as far as to compare him to Radcliffe, and then of course Simmons comes in saying to leave him with some of his guilt, by saying that it's not Fitz's fault that Radcliffe took his designs and, even though made them more advanced, used them for evil. And in the meantime, we have the superior Anton Ivanov, who still has a vendetta for Coulson. They end up going to finding his hideout, or at least one of his hideouts, where it has like a whole like board of all the pictures of encounters from Coulson over the years, from when he was in New Mexico, first locating Mjolnir, Thor's hammer, and the first Thor movie, and just a bunch of other alien encounters he was sent to investigate. And when he sees a picture of a Russian mine, you get to see a flashback to, I guess, Coulson and May during even before the events of Iron Man, when they were level 4 and level 3 agents respectively. And so you get to see like a more like lighthearted May with jokey and kind of a sense, smiling, has more like sense of humor, as opposed to being cold and reserved as a result of having to, as I mentioned in my last review, having to kill the kid with mind control powers on her mission in Baran, which is how she got the name the Cavalry. And I guess before Coulson was recruited by Nick Fury to help assemble the Avengers. And it turns out they're on a mission to retrieve a 084, and Coulson originally got captured by the Russian soldiers there because he wasn't able to maintain his cover for being like a UN diplomat. And it turns out that Anton was one of the soldiers that was involved in his capture before May came to his rescue. And they kind of have this whole like flirty banter back and forth about how taking the relationship to the next level, and she says like, oh, she's in a relationship with the shrink, presumably Andrew Garner, and says if it wasn't, suggesting that if she wasn't dating him and they didn't get married, then maybe it would have gone somewhere. But even when Coulson encounters Anton, face to face, and he tells him the backstory of how he came to know Coulson, he just says that Coulson barely remembers him because he's been on so many missions, and he just considers him like another red shirt, another bad guy to beat. And his reasons still seem kind of petty. It just turns out that his envy towards Inhumans came from the fact that his dad was like was a subservient miner to like an air design pilot, and just groveled for power. As he explains his rant while torturing Mace and having his men beat him to death, which you can see that even Ada, is showing disgust towards. And throughout the mission, they're having trouble locating May through the framework source code, because the source code is like basically all over the place, and it's like bouncing off of different electronic locations because of the Darkhold. And they do eventually find they find their a detention center with a detention center and like and also the submarine as what where the submarine is located. They do not find Radcliffe is not there. He's kind of out for most of the episode because he's like working on the framework and kind of inside of it for most of the time. But there is a scene which is pretty cool where Daisy gets to kick Anton's ass first by using her powers. Then she gets a knife to the shoulder from one of the. But then they decide to do hand-to-hand combat before Daisy decides to just knock him out by causing like some rubble to fall on top of him and leave him for dead. And eventually Mac and Coulson find where Mace is being held captive, and they're able to like he's been nearly beaten to death, and decide they need to get him out of there because he needs medical attention immediately. And while everybody gets separated for a while trying to look for Ada when they're alerted to her presence, and and even not Ada, Simmons and another agent's comms go out for a moment before they regroup and get back on the Zephyr. But then when they get back to base, even Simmons is bothered by the timetables and saying that she's starting to question how when they were separated and considering the different locations, different parts of the detention center they were at, how they were able to regroup so quickly. And then they start to look at a report that was altered, but because of her clearance of the LMD detection, the backup file of the report was sent to her email, and it turns out that it was altered by Coulson, and the report set identifies Coulson, Mac, Daisy, and Mace as LMDs. So it turns out that they're all that Ada somehow managed to replace them. And there's even this scene where she even expresses how disgusted she was towards Anton's action, considering how she seems to enjoy how he's nearly dead and barely breathing, and how he's still gonna have a purpose. So now it's gonna be interesting to see how it's like, now like they basically Ada and like the LMDs are basically taking over SHIELD, and how they're gonna get everybody back while trying to get out of the base and look for everybody, which I think was like a pretty good twist. And like they've been really good about like subverting expectations, even to a greater extent than 24 Legacy, considering that and the original series was on for so long that you can kind of see the twist coming. But anyway, I think this was like a really good episode. I feel like it makes me more excited for next week's episode, just because of where the storyline can go. Maybe there could be, because they have the LMD maze now back online. So it's like, will she know that the others are LMDs, or okay, probably will. And it's like, and the previews may look like the LMDs are going to make it look like that Fitz and Simmons are the LMDs, and and how many of these more like bait and switches they're going to do throughout the later towards till it builds up to the season finale. I think it's going to be kind of cool, and maybe the LMD arc will kind of like redeem itself, considering it's somewhat lackluster villains so far outside of Radcliffe and Ada, and knowing the full extent of their motivations and whatnot. So what do you guys think of the episode? What do you guys think of the LMD arc? Leave your thoughts in the comments down below. If you like this video, like, share, and subscribe, and I will talk to you guys soon. Take care.